Welcome to the Savvy Investor, where it's our job to help you be secure in any economy. Educating our children is a priority for many parents. With the cost of education escalating, you need to know your options. Today on the Savvy Investor, how to pay for college.
Welcome to the Savvy Investor. Each week, the Savvy Investor helps viewers just like you create and grow wealth, protect and preserve it, and distribute it in the most tax-efficient manner while alive and after you passed. Our goal is to make you a better informed investor that hopefully leads to better results, but certainly less risk along the way. You can have financial security in any economy. Today is the day you can take control of your financial future and eliminate worry about your retirement forever. And now, the Savvy Investor with your host, Michael Canet.
Education is perhaps the greatest gift we can give our children. It certainly opens doors to a secure financial future. The issue is the cost. A four-year education at a private school can cost easily into six figures, and even public schools can cost between $15,000 and $25,000 a year. So the question is, how do you pay for it? For many parents, it means taking on additional debt later in life or even working longer, well into retirement years. For some kids, it means taking on huge student loans that will be a burden to their financial future for years to come. Obviously, there's a better path, and it takes a little planning ahead of time. Just like trying to figure out if you can retire the day you retire, it's a bad idea. Waiting until the kids go off to college to figure out if you can pay for them to go to school is a bad idea as well. Now, fortunately, all states have established a program to pay for college. The IRS has a code section, 529, that allows people to save for college. Today, we're going to explore how these accounts work and how you may be able to benefit from them. But before we go there, let's take a look at some news. So in the news today from USA Today, there's a great article talking about the increases in cost of American universities. Between 2001 and 2012, tuition increases averaged about 5.5% per year. In the 80s, this increase was closer to 4.5%, and in the 90s, it was barely above 3%. So we're seeing significant increases. But the article also goes on to talk about the fact that many of these public institutions where you can go to school now, where our kids are going to school, are actually more expensive than Harvard. So we're paying for public schools, and it's costing us more than Harvard does. And another great article we have here is from Forbes. And Forbes is addressing the issue of student loan debt. Now, in 2005, the average debt was about $17,000. But by 2012, that had actually climbed to almost $27,000, which is a 58% increase over that time period. And what's more remarkable is during the same time period, credit card and automobile loan debts, they actually decreased. So while consumers are paying off credit cards and car loans, they're racking up huge student loan debts. And that's a serious problem. FICO, the people who give us our credit scores, they say that, look, the student loan debt situation is unsustainable and we're in serious problems. Our kids are going to have serious problems when they come out of school because income and jobs are not lining up with their debt loads. And that is a huge problem, not only for us as parents, but for our kids in the future. Now, when we come back, we're going to be joined by Joan Marshall of the College Savings Plan of Maryland. And we're going to discuss how to pay for college. You're watching The Savvy Investor, and we'll be right back.
If you're in retirement or retiring in the next 3 to 5 years, you must read Michael Canet's best-selling book, Surviving the Perfect Storm. Best-selling author and National Quill Award winner, Michael Canet's Surviving the Perfect Storm is a must-read to prepare for your golden years. This amazing book can be yours absolutely free, but you must call 800-787-SAVVY. Supplies are limited, so be one of the first 25 callers to receive your free limited edition autographed copy of Surviving the Perfect Storm. Call 800-787-SAVVY. Join the host of the nationally syndicated TV series, The Savvy Investor, and best-selling author Michael Canet for this very important, life-changing workshop. Michael and his team of advisors from across the country have been helping families create and live the retirement they envision by carefully crafting a retirement income plan that can withstand any financial crisis. Michael will give you the tools you need to make sound investment choices and help you prepare for your golden years. At this workshop, you will learn more than just where to invest your money. Michael will also share tax strategies that can save you and your family thousands in tax dollars. You will learn important estate planning techniques that can help you avoid the high cost of a nursing home, as well as reduce or completely eliminate any estate tax. Now, you can join him in person for these very informative workshops. They could be the answer to creating a safe and secure retirement you deserve. Call 800-787-SAVVY to see if you qualify to attend one of these workshops with best-selling author Michael Canet, host of The Savvy Investor.
Welcome back to The Savvy Investor. I think the news that we took a look at before we went to break really sets out the theme and tone of today's conversation. You know, parents want to help children with their education, but they're going further and further into debt and postponing retirement in order to pay for the high cost of education. And even kids now, we see student loans growing and growing and ballooning, and it quite frankly is the next bubble to burst. And while we can't fix college education for kids in school today, we can address the future for your children and grandchildren. And we're joined today by Joan Marshall of the College Plan of Maryland. And Joan, welcome to the Savvy Investor. How are you doing?
Great. Thanks for having me, Mike.
So we've all heard of the term 529s. Let's talk a little bit about what does it mean when we hear 529, because that has a very
Sure.
specific meaning.
Yeah, these are great tax advantage plans, and 529 is just named after the section of the Internal Revenue Code that allows states to set up and manage these types of tax advantage plans. And they're designed to help all families save in advance for future college expenses, because hopefully every dollar that you can save today is at least a dollar less that you or your children need to borrow down the road.
And certainly, I mean, the whole idea of saving for the future, we understand that we save for our retirement, and for parents and grandparents wanting to help their children, this is just another step of saving for the future, in this situation, their children or grandchildren's education.
Right, and families should begin as early as possible. They can begin as young as birth or even before birth.
Right, no, absolutely, I agree with you there. So the 529, the name comes from the code section, but what exactly is the tax advantage? I mean, how do these things work?
Right. Well, there are two main types of 529 plans nationally. There are prepaid tuition plans and there are savings plans, and they're both 529 plans. Any funds that are invested in these plans can grow tax deferred, so families pay no federal taxes on any earnings while their money's in the plan, and then when they do use the money to pay for college down the road, any earnings are federally tax-free and in nearly all cases state tax-free as well.
So what happens if I start a 529 in one state, and because there's tax breaks for going into them? I mean, certainly Maryland has them, and most states.
Most states, about 34 states, do also have a state income deduction or credit for contributions or payments that are made into these plans each year.
So I put my money in, it grows tax deferred. When I'm ready to use it for education, as long as it meets education, the requirements, it comes out tax-free.
Qualified higher ed expenses, that's right, it comes out tax-free.
And that can be for a 2-year institution like a community college or a junior college. It can be for a 4-year institution.
It could also be for graduate school, and in most cases, it could also be for eligible trade and technical schools as well.
So basically, anything that your child may want to do, and I think for some parents, the big fear is, you know, what happens if they get a scholarship? What happens if they don't go to school? What happens if their choice is a trade school, a technical school? They want to be a chef or something like
Right.
that. So the parents do have flexibility with where the money's used when the time comes.
Yes, and with the trade schools, you really do need to look for an eligible trade school, because not all trade and technical schools have been accredited through the U.S. Department of Education and eligible to accept federal financial aid. But you can go to the U.S. Department of Education's website in that FAFSA section, FAFSA, and look for a federal school code. And if you can find a federal school code for the institution, you'll be okay.
You can use it. So we take the money out, we use it for higher education. So two different questions. What happens if, you know, for myself, I have 2 boys.
Right.
And what happens if my older son either gets full scholarship or doesn't need the money? How does it work? Because if I set it up for a child?
Yes.
Okay, so when I'm setting it up, I pick a child to fund it for.
Yes.
And when I pick that child, if I pick Michael, my son Michael, what happens if he doesn't need it for education? What are my options there?
Well, first of all, I say you can keep the money there for Michael, because he may change his mind a few years down the road and decide to use the money. So you can keep it there. You don't have to do anything if he doesn't go to college right out of high school. But at any time, you can move the money to other family members. So you can move it to your other son. You could move it to yourself if you wanted to go for an advanced degree. You can move it to a niece or a nephew. There's a lot of flexibility in where you can move the money to.
So hopefully my wife isn't watching this part of the show, because if I go back to school again, she thinks I'm way overeducated as it is, and if I went back to school, I think she'd kill me. So we can put money aside. It grows tax deferred.
Yes.
If we use it correctly for school, it's tax free.
Yes.
And there's some issues, and you mentioned the prepaid college trust fund is one side of it, and the regular 529, the savings plan, is the second side. There's two different versions.
Yeah, there's only about 10 states that have open prepaid tuition plans at this point.
So explain what that is.
Sure, a prepaid tuition plan is basically where you're committing to a fixed set of payments, either one time up front or annually or monthly, that are based in part on that state's in-state tuition and mandatory fees. And then when you make your payments over time, when it comes time for the child to go to college, if that child goes to an in-state college, those plans will typically cover some level of in-state tuition and mandatory fees that are in effect at that time. But if the child ends up going to a private or out-of-state college, that's still fine, because in that case, you're able to apply a certain amount of money from that plan toward the tuition at a private or out-of-state school.
So basically what we're doing when you do the prepaid, you're making some agreement. I guess the plan has tried to figure out how much it's going to cost for your child to go to school based on when you enroll your child, the age of your child.
Right.
And based on that, you're making payments so that by the time your child reaches college age, in theory, you've saved enough in that plan. But it's actually...
Well, we're also, the states are pooling those payments and investing them, because what a family is paying in based on a current price is then needs to be enough to cover future tuition.
Right.
And so the plan typically pools those payments and invests them to make up the difference between what the family pays in today and what the plan needs to be able to pay out down the road.
But essentially, it locks in the price of college for you.
Yes.
So as long as the parent or grandparent is willing to make X amount of payments per month or quarter or year, we know that we've set aside enough money that it will pay for that school, that state school system.
In-state tuition, right. And then it can be applied toward private and out-of-state schools as well.
And so if my kid, being from Maryland, my children decide not to go to a Maryland school, my youngest one's off at Indiana University of Pennsylvania, we can take the value of what we prepaid?
Well, for Maryland, it would pay up to that year's average tuition of the Maryland public colleges toward the tuition elsewhere. Different state prepaid plans work slightly differently.
But at least it's not lost. I mean, it's not
No, it's not at all lost.
and it can still apply.
Yes.
Now, that is basically presetting a price. You have a fixed price that you're paying, and you know what tuition's going to be.
Right.
Conversely, the 529, the savings plan, that's different.
Right. It is different because in those plans, you're choosing investment options. And you can choose more aggressive investment options, mostly in stocks, or you can choose more conservative options. But in that plan, you are bearing the investment risk for the investment option you choose.
Well, so quite frankly, the prepaid, even though, it may cost a little bit more dollar-wise, at least visually it looks like it's going to cost more, because all the risk is being shifted to the state, you might actually be better off, because now you know for certain you're going to have enough.
Right.
Whereas with the savings plan, you're just putting away.
Right, and with the prepaid plan, it might not really be that much more, because you also don't have to buy all 4 years with a prepaid plan. You can buy as little as a semester, and some states have even unit plans where you can buy like 1/100th of an average year of college tuition. So the prepaid prices vary depending on how much tuition you want to lock in.
And with the savings plan side of it, the risk is on you. You could have more at the end of the time period because the markets did well, or your choices of investments did well, or you could have less because your choices underperformed.
Correct.
Now, one of the really neat things that you've shared with us in the past is the idea of being able to take, a lot of parents and grandparents have bought EE bonds over the time. And of course, EE bonds, the interest is all deferred.
Right.
But when you cash them out, depending on very, very unique circumstances on how you actually own the bond, is whether that interest is taxable or not for higher education. And most parents and grandparents think that if I use it for education, it's automatically tax-free. And there's some truth to that, but it still goes back to how you buy the bonds.
Right.
And in our situation, my parents and my wife's parents bought our kids bonds, but they always bought the bonds wrong. And even though I told them every year, you don't buy them that way, buy them this way, look, it's for the kids, I'm not going to bother with that. So, but there's a way we can convert those bonds in that taxable event into 529 plans, which I think is just fabulous. And I think it's an opportunity most parents miss and grandparents miss.
That's correct, because you cash out those bonds and you have a check for the proceeds made payable to the 529 plan of your choice. And then you also need to get a form that will record the amount of the proceeds that were earnings, and you provide that to the 529 plan and they will record it in the account. But then as long as you go on to use those funds for eligible higher education expenses, then those earnings would be tax-free, just like they would be if you started putting your money in a 529 plan.
Perfect, perfect. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we've been talking about 529s from a national level. I want to bring it closer home to us here in Maryland. We're going to take a quick break. You're watching The Savvy Investor, and we'll be right back.
If you're in retirement or retiring in the next 3 to 5 years, you must read Michael Canet's best-selling book, Surviving the Perfect Storm. Best-selling author and National Quill Award winner, Michael Canet's Surviving the Perfect Storm is a must-read to prepare for your golden years. This amazing book can be yours absolutely free, but you must call 800-787-SAVVY. Supplies are limited, so be one of the first 25 callers to receive your free limited edition autographed copy of Surviving the Perfect Storm. Call 800-787-SAVVY. Join the host of the nationally syndicated TV series, The Savvy Investor, and best-selling author Michael Canet for this very important, life-changing workshop. Michael and his team of advisors from across the country have been helping families create and live the retirement they envision by carefully crafting a retirement income plan that can withstand any financial crisis. Michael will give you the tools you need to make sound investment choices and help you prepare for your golden years. At this workshop, you will learn more than just where to invest your money. Michael will also share tax strategies that can save you and your family thousands in tax dollars. You will learn important estate planning techniques that can help you avoid the high cost of a nursing home, as well as reduce or completely eliminate any estate tax. Now, you can join him in person for these very informative workshops. They could be the answer to creating a safe and secure retirement you deserve. Call 800-787-SAVVY to see if you qualify to attend one of these workshops with best-selling author Michael Canet, host of The Savvy Investor.
Welcome back to The Savvy Investor. Today we're talking with Joan Marshall. She's the Executive Director of the College Savings Plan of Maryland, and we're talking about college saving 529s, how to pay for your children and grandchildren's education. Now, Joan, when we left for our break, we had talked about more from a national level, and you're the past chairman of the National Association?
Correct, the College Savings Plans Network, that's correct.
At the national level?
Yes.
So we talked more from a broad scope, how the 529 works, the ability to put the money away and use it for college, tax-free, use for education, the ability to transfer it back and forth between family members. I want to focus a little bit about our specific plan here in Maryland, because I know each state has a little bit different nuances on it, but here in Maryland, we have two sets of plans as well.
Correct, correct.
And you have the prepaid.
Yes, the Maryland Prepaid College Trust, and that's the plan that lets families lock in a fixed payment that's based in part on today's tuitions at Maryland public colleges. Families make their payments when it comes time for their child to go to college down the road. If they attend a Maryland public college, whether that's Towson or University of Maryland in College Park or Salisbury or any of those Maryland public colleges, the family knows that they have in-state tuition and mandatory fees paid for whatever it is at the time that their child goes to college. And if their child decides to go to a private or out-of-state college, that's still fine, because in that case, the plan will pay up to that year's average tuition of the Maryland public colleges toward the tuition at the private or out-of-state school. So the family gets a fair value for their money, regardless of where their child ends up going.
In general, how much does it cost? You know, is there a minimum? Is there a maximum? How much does it cost to get involved in either of the plans?
Well, for the Prepaid College Trust, the cost varies widely because, first of all, it depends on how many semesters or years of college someone wants to start paying for up front. Because they don't have to pay for all 4 years up front. That can become pretty unaffordable. But they can start with as little as a semester at a 4-year school or 1 or 2 years even at a community college level. And then they can even apply a community college plan toward a 4-year school.
Okay, well, I just want to make sure that was
Sure.
clear. So I can sign up for something that's affordable for me today and say that, look, I want to pay for 2 years of the community college and 2 years of a 4-year college. And as my kid is things and facts and circumstances change, I can either add more money. I mean, it might cost me more, but I can also consolidate that time.
You could convert the 2-year community college plan to a 1-year university plan, and then you can buy an additional year. So once you're in the plan, you can buy additional semesters or years, and you'll pay what the additional semesters or years cost when you buy them, but lock in your current prices for what you bought up front.
Right. So if I start when my kid is a newborn, and then I change it when they're 5, I'm going to pay rates for my newborn at my newborn, but when they're 5, I've changed the plan. For the new portion of the plan, I'm going to pay the new rate.
Correct.
For the new portion.
That's
so for
right.
the extra year or whatever I've added to it.
Right. But
All
it's
right.
still great to start at whatever level you can afford when you first can.
Well, the fact is that student loan debt is bankrupting the next generation.
That's right.
And they can't get jobs as it is, and they come out of college, and like I said, this is really the next significant economic problem we're going to have is this whole student loan bubble. So the ability for parents and grandparents to help their children is just phenomenal.
Right.
Now, the 529, the savings plan itself, what are the costs to get involved with there?
Well, with that plan, you can start to invest with as little as $25 a month. And just about every state has a plan where you can start at that low of an amount, and some states even have lower minimums than that. But as little as $25 a month, as long as you commit to automatic monthly contributions. And then you choose from a variety of investment options. In Maryland, those investment options are managed by T. Rowe Price. So you have varying combinations of T. Rowe Price mutual funds in these different investment options.
And so with the college savings, you're making your own investment decisions. With the prepaid, you have the board itself makes those decisions. You have
Correct.
an investment committee.
Yes.
One of the things I really like about the prepaid college, the trust fund itself, is that legislative guarantee. Let's talk a little bit about that.
It is, yeah. With that, it's a state law in Maryland that says that if for any reason the prepaid college trust doesn't have enough money to pay for a child's college education 10, 15, 20 years down the road, then the governor must put an amount in the state budget to fully cover that shortfall, subject to final Maryland General Assembly approval because they're the ones that approve the entire state budget each year. But it does give families a greater measure of assurance that what they're paying into the prepaid plan today is going to cover those tuition benefits down the road, and it's certainly a greater measure of assurance than they're likely to find in most other forms of private investing.
Well, and certainly, we hear this question all the time when it comes to how to invest retirement dollars. The fact is that you are transferring a risk to the legislature, and even if it's not as, even if somebody can poke holes in it and says, well, what happens if the General Assembly chooses not to fund it, if it, one, if it became underfunded, and two, they chose not to fund it. I mean, I think from my perspective, I know you can't say this, they don't get reelected. So I mean, that's a problem for them. But the fact is that even if they chose not to do it, you still have a greater opportunity for protection and a guarantee than you do if you just go into the straight savings plan on your own.
Correct.
I mean, the savings plan has none. At least this has some legislative.
Some oversight and some formal review.
Right, exactly. So it seems to me that for parents that can truly afford to start with the prepaid is a much better choice. And grandparents, what a great gift to give to your grandchildren, the gift of education. It's the thing that's going to make a difference in their future. It's great watching them grow up. It's great being able to spend time with them. But the ability to give them a college education is absolutely phenomenal. Now, Joan, I want to take some viewer email. We get emails every week, and we have a couple here specifically about 529s and college saving plans. We have one from Susie in Bristol, Tennessee. And she wants to know about and you had mentioned this before, she wants to know how the 529 actually impacts her FAFSA forms.
That's a great question.
So explain what the FAFSA forms are first.
Sure, it's the free...
Grandparents don't remember these.
That's right. It's the free application for federal student aid, and it's what every student and their families need to fill out to be considered for need-based federal financial aid and many other forms of financial aid, actually. And money that's saved in a 529 plan is typically considered a parental asset on that form, which is a good thing because parental assets are only assessed at about 5.6% of the family's expected financial contribution toward college costs. That's in contrast with student assets, which are assessed at about 20% toward the family's expected contribution.
So it counts, but it's not detrimental.
Very, very few of your assets count. It's only like 5.6%.
And from my perspective, even if it does count and it has to be applied towards it, better to have it and have it count against you a little bit than not have it, because the expense of not having it makes it even worse. Our second email is from John in Orlando. And John's looking at the Florida 529, And basically, and you addressed this already, but I want to bring back the point. John says, what happens if his kids don't go to a school in Florida? And of course, I mean, Florida may have a different...
They have a wonderful prepaid tuition plan. In fact, it's probably the largest one in the country, and it's one of the oldest ones in the country. And I do believe that they have provisions to be able to use their prepaid plan at colleges outside of Florida. But also the fact is, in Florida, most kids evidently end up wanting to go to a college in Florida as opposed to Maryland, which is a large exporter of college students. But you can apply it out of state.
And I actually happen to know, I have a good friend of mine, Wayne, who grew up in Florida. His children grew up in Florida. He has the Florida Prepaid Trust Fund, and his kids actually go to school in North Carolina. So I do know that's an accurate statement. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we're going to wrap up our conversation with some takeaways from Joan today. Joan, we really appreciate you spending time with us. Great information. Remember, grandparents, saving for your children and grandchildren's education is probably the greatest gift you can give them. You're watching The Savvy Investor, and we'll be right back.
Now keep in mind that just like any tool, there's the right tool for the right job and a wrong tool for the wrong job. We've just scratched the surface here, and you'll want to know more about how today's conversation might or might not fit your needs. Ask about fees, surrender charges, market risk, interest rate risks, how the guarantees work, liquidity, and much more. Remember, the right tool for the right job.
If you're in retirement or retiring in the next 3 to 5 years, you must read Michael Canet's best-selling book, Surviving the Perfect Storm. Best-selling author and National Quill Award winner, Michael Canet's Surviving the Perfect Storm is a must-read to prepare for your golden years. This amazing book can be yours absolutely free, but you must call 800-787-SAVVY. Supplies are limited, so be one of the first 25 callers to receive your free limited edition autographed copy of Surviving the Perfect Storm. Call 800-787-SAVVY.
Today we were joined by Joan Marshall, the College Savings Plan of Maryland, and the takeaways she gave us were, first and foremost, start saving immediately. Listen, you can do this for just $25 a month. Start putting away money today for the kids or grandkids. There's no better gift that you can give them. Number two, tax-free is better than taxable. The ability to put money away into these 529 plans and have it grow tax-free for education is phenomenal. And again, $25 a month is all it takes. And finally, these 529 plans are transferable, which means that just because you start for one child or one grandchild doesn't mean you can't transfer the funds and use it for another grandchild down the road. So really, the important part is here, start saving immediately for the education. It's the greatest gift that you can give your kids or your grandkids. I want to really thank Joan for giving us some great advice. If you'd like our free step-by-step guide to saving for college, call the number you see on your screen. It's a step-by-step guide to help you make smart money choices. Give us a call and we'll send you out a free guide all at no cost to you. If you'd like information on today's show, or you'd just like to secure your financial future, give us a call and we can start you on the path to financial freedom. Now next week we're going to talk about long-term care and how to pay for the high cost of nursing homes. We'll see you, the Savvy Investor, next week.